Hello, 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 hello. Mindcanyon Community. I will just wait for a little while until a few people appear, if they will. If not, then we know this is going to appear on the page and can be viewed at any time. This is always the, oh, we have a person. Hello, hello, hello. And have they gone? This is always the worry, I think, isn't it, when you do a live? And will anybody turn up? But I suppose you face your fears anyway and go ahead. So if anybody appears, if you could just maybe give me a thumbs up so I know you could see and hear me, that would be great. I'll just make sure I've got all my bits in place. But I think there comes a time after a minute or two, I'll give it another minute, that I will just start, because then I know people will be able to see this on the page at a later date. So we have a couple of people appearing. If you could just give me a thumbs up or a hi just to let me know you could hear me, so I know I've got everything in place. Because if you can hear me, then I can begin. Brilliant. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a thumbs up. Fantastic. My name is Vanessa Louise Moore, and it is an absolute honour to be here on the Mindcanyon Community page. Hi, Lisa. I thought I recognised your face. Thank you for being here with me. I just really wanted to say thank you first to Steve, because he asked, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago, who wanted to step out of their comfort zone and present on a, and hi Libby, hi, thank you for being here, who wanted to come out of their comfort zone. And I gather by the fact that my heart is racing 10 to the dozen, even though I've just had a 10-minute meditation before coming online, that stepping out of my comfort zone, this surely is. So I just really wanted to start with a quick story, because what I wanted to talk about tonight was dot to dot, or stepping stones, question mark. What's your perspective? And why I'm so passionate about this subject. Have you heard of the story called My Hut's on Fire? There is a man shipwrecked on a desert island all by himself, and he's there for quite a while, and he grumps and moans and bitches and has a bit of a frustrating time because there's nobody there and he's bored, and you know, he doesn't know if anybody's ever come and rescue him. So after a little while, he builds himself a hut. And he comes to terms with the fact that he's going to be there. So he just makes his life worth livable while he's there. And off he goes into the wilderness to find some food. And he comes back, and would you believe it, his hut is on fire. So now he's effing and blind and he's getting really cross. This is bloody typical. All I wanted to do is just go off and get myself some food, and I come back, my bloody house is on fire. This just is not fair. Grump, 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 victim, victim, victim. So he falls asleep after he's got all upset, and the next morning he wakes up to a big horn from a ship. And the ship, a man from the ship calls over and he says, "Hi, can we help you?" "Yes, please. Would you rescue me?" "How did you know I was here?" "We saw your smoke signal." Really, for me, the moral of that story, I heard that one of my deepest, darkest moments, and that for me is everything happens for a reason. And when you are in your shit, or what I call the shit pit, when you are in it, you cannot see the label of the jar you're in. So that taught me a massive lesson, which is where and how I have ended up doing what I do now today. You know, we are here right now in this very moment because of the choices we have made and the choices we have allowed others to make for us. And we are born, I believe, this is my belief, we are born with a mission placed in our hearts just in case one day we choose to be free. It's ours, it's unique. Some people don't do anything with theirs, but if you're listening to this, or you have any inclination that calling within you, there's something greater than yourself, you think you are here for a bigger reason, a bigger purpose, then you also believe that you have that unique calling and you have that mission in your heart. So The problem is that we are born into a world where we immediately, when we're born, we don't have a choice. We are born to people who look after us and feed us and change us and clothe us and look after us, because we don't have a conscious mind until we're about 3 years old. So we are surrounded by our parents, bless them, doing it in the only way they know how. And they're looking after us with their views and their perspectives and the way they see the world. And then in the background of all of that, we've got the social media, and we've got news, and we've got magazines, and we've got television and TV and radio. And then when we're 5 years old, we go to school, and we've got teachers and friends and family all contributing to the way we view the world and how they think we should be doing things. And because we don't know any different, we listen to what people have to say, and we take all this on board, and we believe this to be true for ourselves, and we borrow other people's belief systems, which they have borrowed from other people, that they have borrowed from other people, that they have borrowed from other people. And it's not until you start to think, hold on a minute, I'm not so sure this is true for me. And once we start standing up and saying, I don't think this is true for me, or in the way we express ourselves, not just in words, and people go, really, who do you think you are? And they start squashing us back down again, and we become embarrassed or humiliated. That was a big thing for me. Anytime I was a kid and I wanted to be in my joyful state, there would be people around me, thankfully not my family, but there would be people around me that would say, why don't you just pipe it down a bit? Why do you have to laugh so loud? That it became something that I then thought was not good. And we all have this. So any time we start expressing ourselves and we get squashed in some way, and it hurts, and we feel the pain of that, the humiliation or the embarrassment, we make it mean something, whereas life is just neutral, but we make it mean something. But this mission that we're born with, this is our truth. This is what we are here to do. And if you ever got to the point like me where you go, is this it? Is this my life? What's the point of all of this? I'm not sure this is what I really signed up for. And the pain comes as we journey further and further and further away from our true north. If you think of that North Star, that if you're born at 12 o'clock on a clock and you're journeying all the way down to 6, the pain comes when you keep hitting that 6 and you keep hitting that 6. Now, the journey will take us through some exhilarating highs, and it will take us down into some debilitating lows. That is just life. And it's my belief that we have to experience all of these highs and lows, because we are a spiritual being that has been born into a physical body. The problem I'm finding, that I found with myself and when I work with my clients, is they think that this is it. They think that this earth suit that they're carrying around and this physical body, they think that this is it. Now, I firmly believe that we are everything and nothing all at the same time. So we are that spiritual being in a human, having a human experience. So we are here to experience ourselves. And that comes in the form of life. The problem is our intellect and our mind makes it mean something, and we make ourselves wrong. And this is where the guilt feelings come in. And then we go out into the big wide world and we start working, and we're met with more resistance and more people telling us that they think we should be doing things a certain way. And we get to the point, I know mine was 2008, where I was absolutely in my deepest, darkest corner of my world. And I remember my dad saying to me, God wouldn't give you this if he didn't think you could handle it. Now, God can be whatever you choose. I see it as source. I'm not religious. I call it energy, invisible power. And I remember looking at him thinking, really, Dad, you think that's really going to help me right now? And bless him, he's a wise man. But it stuck with me for the rest of that day, for the rest of that evening. He wouldn't be giving you this if he didn't think you could handle it. And it wasn't until later on that evening that I thought to myself, you know what, bring it on. If you think I can handle this and you think this is all I'm good for, bring it on. I want to see what else you've got, because that really started to charge me up. I'm a competitive sportswoman, or at least I was at school. So that for me gave me a bit of a fire in my belly. And as I started to question why this stuff was happening, I started to find some answers. More and more shit came my way, more and more challenges, and it was really beginning to be a mirror, and everything that was happening was mirroring back to me all my belief systems, which were I was worthless, I was useless, I was stupid, I was powerless. So I was attracting to me predominantly men into my life that were mirroring back to me that I was completely powerless. So I had a great time playing in that victim space, and I was overpowered by other people's behaviours. But here's what I learnt about myself. In that deepest, darkest corner of my world in 2008, when I was considering doing the unforgivable, I'd already considered taking my own life. So I was considering taking somebody else's life. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I looked up at the ceiling, and I just remember thinking, what on earth am I here for? How on earth am I going to get out of this? And the message I got back was love and gratitude. And I thought to myself, how on earth is that going to help? Seriously, how on earth is that going to help? But I kept getting this message, love and gratitude, love and gratitude. And my kids were 7 and 5 at the time. And I walked across the landing. I thought, right, okay, fine. So I reluctantly walked across the landing, and I stood over my kids, and I stood over my daughter first. And I remember thinking to myself, thank God for you. Just thank God that you're here. Thank God that you're safe. All babies look like angels when they're sleeping. Thank you for being my angel. Thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to be your mum. I walked across to my son's room, the same. Thank you for being my cheeky monkey. Thank you for being here. Thank you for distracting me from my shit pit, if you like. And all of a sudden, I started to feel a release within me. So that was just a little bit about where I was right now, because I couldn't see the label of the jar I was in, and my jar was my life. I found it was eating away at the way I thought and the way I processed things and the perspective I had on life. Changed that evening in 2008. Hi Helen, thank you for the love, thank you. And I just remember thinking to myself, what perspective can I now look at my life from? Because it couldn't have got any darker or deeper than it did in 2008 when I was considering taking somebody else's life. The way my thought process was at the time was completely debilitating my body. I was in a completely blame state for my husband at the time and his addictions. I was so blind that I couldn't even see my own addiction, which was codependency, sugar, perfectionism. All of those things fed his addiction, and his addictions fed mine. It was absolutely crazy. And we got stuck in this cycle of going round and round and round. 12 bloody years. It's exhausting. Absolutely exhausting. But only when I started to listen to the point where I was as far back as I could possibly be. Overweight, desperate. And I asked, how on earth can I change this? How can I move from this space? Did I act on practicing love and gratitude? Did my world shift? Now, it's not all perfect since then, because as soon as you make that decision to move and you decide to change, you are still going to get that tension, because life is going to say to you, really? Do you really want a better existence than this? And you just have to keep meeting it and saying yes, 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 yes. But it's about listening to that very core part of you that is constantly trying to express itself. It's done it from an early age, and we squashed it back down. And we squash it so far down that it starts bubbling up, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it slaps you round the face. And it causes so much pain, whether that is dis-ease in your body. Being told I had melanoma was an absolute wake-up call for me, that I was going so far in the wrong direction on a steaming train. that once I decided to put the hook back in my train and try and somehow slow down that speeding train, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes persistence and tenacity and determination, because I decided to tune in to the very part of me that kept calling me, saying, I'm in here, Vanessa. My ego had got so caught up in, but what will people think if you decide to go in a different direction? People know you as this, Vanessa. You have this, you do this. They think this of you. It's all bollocks. It was hurting so much that I decided to be brave enough and listen to that voice within. And I'm so glad I did, because it is the most liberating feeling. So what do I mean by join the dots, or dot to dot and stepping stones? When you look back at your life and you can look at the dots and the journey, only then can you join the dots up and they create some sort of shape. But going forward, they're dots, so they're stepping stones. So there's an awful lot of trust that has to be present. The choice I had was to stay in that place or to move. You cannot stay still. The world is turning without our help. Without our help, the world is still turning. So it is so important that we create and we move with it, or we're deteriorating. It's as simple as that. So it's so important to have a look back over the times. You know, one of the questions I ask myself is, when I look back at painful times, what did I make that mean about me? Where else before then did I have similar things? How did I feel in that space? Where else was my life presenting this to me? And it's not until you can answer questions like that that you start to see the beauty and the gift that is in your pain. The beauty and the gift that's in your pain. It's incredibly powerful. When I felt that way, how did that negatively impact my life? When I thought and made the decision about myself that I was powerless or that I wasn't good enough, how did that negatively impact my life? Well, of course, I was attracting more of the same. I was attracting more people and more circumstances that reminded me face to face that I was worthless and I was powerless. And then who was I blaming for that? What needed to be done then about blaming those people? But here's the key. What's the gift in the pain? What is the gift in the pain? And when I look back at the times where I was absolutely in my shit pit, I can see that I learned to send love in response to hate. I can see that I was building every moment of every day some resilience, and my shame when all my stuff was exposed, the resilience that builds up within you. You just don't think there is a way out, but it's about putting one foot in front of the other and staying as contacted to yourself as you possibly can and listening to that whisper. It is flipping uncomfortable. It is really, really uncomfortable, but it is so worth it when you can sit there. Because I was seen as this in the cosmetic industry I was in. I was seen as Little Miss Sunshine, and I was seen as the go-getter and the one that was always happy. But this Little Miss Happy at home was a miserable bitch. But when I started to look at why I was miserable and why I began to own that, did it make so much sense to me? Because I started to recognise that what was this power that was turning the world and beating my heart? What was that power? And that if I didn't have that power, it was beating my heart. If I didn't have that power, what would I be? I would just be a finite body. Now, I've seen people in Chapel of Rest, so I know that when the spirit leaves them, I know what they look like. They're not the person they were because their spirit is not there. So I made a decision to tap into that spirit within. I decided to recognise that if it's got the energy to turn the world and beat my heart, it has the energy to align me to my purpose. So I just started asking questions. I started asking, what can I learn from the pain I have experienced? What have I made it mean? What is my gift now? And I got asked over and over again, how do you do what you do and deal with what you deal with effortless grace and a smile on your face? And I thought to myself, you know what, that's all just choice. But I had so many people asking me, how do you do that? That I really started to have to look into that. And I found that for me, bliss, that bliss feeling for me was something I desperately wanted to follow. I couldn't remember having enough of that in my life, but I could remember the feeling of that blissful feeling in my life. And I wanted to tap into that as much as I possibly could. So what did that mean for me? That meant being in my joy as much as I possibly could. Where was my joy? Being out with people. What am I passionate about? I am so passionate about helping people feel better about themselves. And I recognised that within myself when I was 13, because I hated myself at school and growing up. I looked funny, I was overweight, I had a frown on my face, I hardly had any friends at all. The people I was friends with were the people that didn't want to be friends with anybody else. And I just hated who I was, and I wanted to make my life about helping people feel better about themselves. So that's why I went down into the industry that I went into. But as a result of my life adversity, I found that people were asking me, how do I get out? How do I overcome the stuff that is so debilitating, like you have? And it wasn't until I was asked these questions that I really thought to myself, I have got to find out how to do this. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I have got to be the authentic example. I had to release the image that the ego was creating for me. You know, but Vanessa, you can't do anything other than be this magnificent cosmetic winner within your company. You can't do anything other than that, because what will people think? I had to release. I call my ego Ellie. I've made her my friend. And now when she appears on my shoulder and says, yeah, you know what, last time you did that, they laughed at you and humiliated you, and, you know, you felt silly, or you were abused, or last time you stepped into your power, this is what happened. So I say to Ellie now, thank you, lovely, for being there, but I've got a handle on this right now. If you wouldn't mind just waiting in the green room, I'll come and get you when I need you, if that's all right. The kids think I'm mad, because when they've got their friends over, they say, is your mum talking to herself? And they go, yeah, that's fine. She does that all the time. But I recognised that I had to release the image that the story of my ego had created. But what I recognised, and this was a really painful truth for me, the story that I had created, I was the main character. And part of me was thoroughly enjoying the attention that story was giving me. The ego, the part, haven't I done well? You know, good for me. I've really overcome my shit and all the rest of it. And I was still in that victim place, and I was reveling in all that attention, until I just thought, when am I going to take responsibility for my life? You know, if I'm pointing the finger, it's his fault, it's their fault, or it's because of them. I've got 3 fingers pointing back at me. I've got 3 fingers pointing back at me. And it's not until then that I realised the importance of taking responsibility for myself and my story. But what was my story teaching me? As a result of feeling powerless, I had attracted some abusive behaviour into my life. I was sexually abused at 19. I then went away and worked on the ships and was attacked by a Mexican man on the cruise liners. And then I came home, and within 3 or 4 months of coming home, I was date raped. And that all happened within 18 months, and I'm only 21. And when I look back at those experiences, what makes me now so grateful is that I recognised where I was giving my power away. And by giving your power away, you invite circumstances and people into your life that abuse you. Because you're there saying, here I am for the taking. Do what you want with me. And it wasn't until I started to recognize that I just thought, oh my God. And when you can look back at the dots and see the picture that it creates, I had learned so much about myself through all of that. And it was, for me, it was about sending love in response to hate. And I needed, when I left my life 3 years ago, when I walked away from my life and the kids and I woke up one morning and we didn't go home, all I needed was a place, a safe space that I could trust, that I could step into, where I could become what I call metaphorically naked. And that is mentally naked, is emotionally naked, and spiritually naked. You can get physically naked if you like, that's up to you. But for me, it was about stripping back all those layers and the stories and the person I had become. I was so far away from myself, I didn't recognize myself. And I was looking in the mirror every single day in my eyes, and I just thought, I don't recognize who you are right now. I was overweight. I had to lose 6 stone in weight. I had to release my, what I call my perfectionist addiction, because of all the stuff that was going on. I covered it up so beautifully, and I put on this beautiful mask, and off I'd go. And I swept it under the carpet. I completely numbed myself out with behaviours and food and exercise and people. And I just lost myself completely. And it's getting to that point when I thought, if I need that, how many more people need that? I needed a safe and trusting, non-judgmental space where I could just strip myself bare and just really see myself for who I truly was. And I just wondered, and that's why I created my company Trust Vanessa, and I mentor women now. And I help them recognize their magnificence, because I believe we all have this Wonder Woman mentality where we go, it's okay, and we can manage everything, and it's, and all the rest of it, and it's okay, and I'll say yes to them, and I'll say yes to that, and I can't handle my stuff going on. I can do everything, and then I get behind closed doors, and I just think to myself, I collapse in a heap, because I can't do it all. And every time I make a decision to step out, I meet resistance, so it's just easier to step back again. And it wasn't until I really decided to own that and really look at myself and become brave enough to trust myself to be metaphorically naked and really own the parts of me that I'd hidden, all the shame I'd felt, all the embarrassment I'd felt, all the humiliation I'd felt without telling anybody about what had happened. Did I really start to recognize where my light was. And because I did that for myself, I became my own best client. I now have the ability to do that for other people, and it really excites me that I'm able to help women recognize their magnificence. I help them embrace and move through their fears. I help them express their essential selves, and I help them embody the life that they choose, because for me, it's all about choice. If I'd have given up in that deepest, darkest corner of my life, I wouldn't be here now, living the life I live, with gratitude and love in my heart, and helping other people do the same. It's an absolute blessing to go through the shit pit and come out the other side with a steel core, and somebody called me a steel butterfly, like a steel core with elegant wings, being able to turn it around. So have a look. I've got 8 questions which I'll post in here, which really helped me. I hope that gets answered soon. That really helped me look back at the experiences of my life, the dot to dots, and what shape I could make it. And then trust that as I step forward on those stepping stones going forward, that when I perhaps got caught up in other stuff again, I just know from experience and looking back at the dots that it created a shape, that all will be okay. So Trust Vanessa, my company, is really all about that. That's, for me, how I want people to trust that everything they've been through holds their brightest gift, and that it is okay and you are allowed to own your story, own your gift in your pain, because this world needs you just as nature intended. You, just as nature intended, are this world's greatest gift, and it is a blessing to be the authentic example, because you never know who needs you. You never know whose life you're going to brighten, whose life you're going to inspire. When you step into your authentic expression, when you allow yourself to be that light, you illuminate the way for others to be the same. So God bless you. Thank you so much. I just realised it's past. If you've got any questions at all, please do let me know, and we can just pop them in the comments, and I'll answer them after this. It just really leaves me to say, please do look back at the dots of your life and see what shape it makes for you, because at the very essence of who you are is a loving experience that really is just calling out to be expressed for the benefit of you and for the benefit of your loved ones and the wider world around you. It begins with yourself. So trust that everything that you've been through, the times your hut has been on fire, it's all been for a reason. Even though you can't see it right now, please trust that it will lead you. If you choose to reflect, don't sit there and dwell in it, but just choose to reflect on what your past and your past story and where you are right now, what it's choosing to show you. Because if you can truly embrace that, I promise you that you will feel a liberating feeling. And by doing that, you will be a gift not only to yourself, but to the loved ones around you. And that, for me, is really why we're here, to experience our lives with our loved ones. God bless you. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I look forward to interacting with you further at future dates. Okay, God bless you. Thank you so much. Bye, bye, bye.